Welcome back into the Pig Troll Show. Kevin McPherson and Jacob Morris with you for this week's Hog Hoops Report. Kevin, the past couple of weeks we've done this. It's been a lot happier circumstances. Arkansas goes to Knoxville to take on number one and undefeated Tennessee on Saturday, and no sugarcoating it, it didn't go well. It went quite horribly. Tennessee takes it 76-52. Arkansas looked really out of its depth from the beginning in this one. At one point, Arkansas led 12-9. From that point on, it was all Tennessee. The Vols dominated the Razorbacks for 40 minutes, and kind of a humbling, we'll say, for the Razorbacks, showing, as Coach Cal said post-game, Kevin, we're not as good as the number one team right now, and Arkansas has to get it back together because the SEC slate's going to come, and it's going to come fast for the Razorbacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's the next tough team on your schedule.
Yep.
You know, playing away from home against number one, though, and this is the
Tough.
best defense in the country. I think Ken Palmet was ranked second going into that game. Now it's number one. And Arkansas was shooting well overall from the field. One of the top five teams in the country in field goal percentage. Hadn't been a bad rebounding team, not a strong rebounding team, but, taking care of business in that department, even against Illinois in that previous bad loss, 13-point loss. The number one rebounding team in the country at that point, Arkansas held its own on the glass. This was a game where Tennessee got 16 more shots on goal. Most of that was just complete domination of the offensive glass. Even when Arkansas had a good defensive possession, it couldn't close it out with a defensive rebound. And so that's how you get to 7 more made field goals for Tennessee, 4 more from behind the three-point arc, 3 more from inside of it. And Arkansas tries to create its own extra possessions defensively and get out and run in transition. Arkansas, a top 20 team in transition, scoring nearly 17 points per game. There was 2 areas where Arkansas beat Tennessee. One of them was in transition, 8-3 though. +5, but it's a small margin.
Yeah.
That's less than half what Arkansas was averaging in transition. So Tennessee took everything away. Arkansas shot more threes and couldn't make them. Shot more threes than twos and couldn't make the shots from distance. Both teams shot under 40%, but I just thought sometimes statistics lie. If you'd have told me both teams would be under 40, I would have said it's a ground game for both teams, and they were probably battling out in a fairly close game. But the offensive glass work by Tennessee, and then Tennessee was just better defensively despite being similar in field goal percentage-wise, all those second opportunities. And then Tennessee was better at the free throw line, 12 of 15 for 80%. Arkansas 6 of 13 for under 50%. Even there, the margin wasn't great, but it was big enough that you just never could find a pocket of success enough to keep yourself within striking distance. Look, it was a 15-point game at halftime. It was still a 15-point deficit with about 7 minutes to go. So Arkansas, you could say the first 13 minutes of the second half was just not gaining ground, not losing much, and then Tennessee hit that extra gear late, and it was a 24-point loss. So it's one game. You got 17 more to go. It's going to be a big week, but plenty of quad 1 and quad 2 opportunities, Jacob, for the Arkansas Razorbacks to get well. 11-3 now, 0-1 to start league play.
Yeah, the rebounding really was obviously what stuck out to everybody. When you look at just Arkansas getting out rebounded 51-29 by a Tennessee team, we obviously had questions about frontline depth, how Arkansas would hold up against quality bigs. And I went into the Arkansas record book just curious. I hadn't seen a rebound discrepancy that big in a really long time. And Tennessee's 51 rebounds was 5 short of a program record in the wrong way in terms of the most that Arkansas had ever given up. I think it was Georgia a couple of years ago, got 56. So it's just not the area that you want to be in. But you touched on it as well, where when you're looking for positives to kind of take away, it's hard to really find any because this team struggled not defensively necessary, but obviously on the glass in terms of giving up extra possessions. And then offensively, it just wasn't there. Cal had that great quote where he said, you're not going to make every single 3, but you sure as heck can't miss every single one of them. Arkansas 6 of 29, 20%, 37% from the field, and then you hit it from the free throw line as well. Arkansas struggled, shooting less than 50%. That's just not going to get it done in any capacity. But offensively, what stuck out to me as well is we've come on here and almost kind of sounded like a broken record in terms of Arkansas needs to find other offensive options. And I know John L. Davis was coming back from injury, but 25 minutes and a goose egg on the scoreboard, 0-4 from the field. Arkansas needs more from a transfer portal guy that everybody really thought Arkansas was going to rely on for scoring. He didn't show up, and it can't just be Boogie Flynn. It can't just be Adu Thiero, especially when Thiero has what Calipari called just his second dud of the season.
Well, there's several things here. It's a lot to unpack. Chaz Lanier, the leading
Yeah,
scorer in this game out of the transfer portal, 29 points. He's been averaging right around 20 all season, knocking down 46% for three,
unbelievable.
averaging 4 made threes per game. He made 5 against Arkansas on a high efficiency. That's what the Razorback Nation thought they were getting in
Yep.
Nelly Davis. It hasn't been there in a single game this year, let alone a goose egg, which was even worse than where he was trending before sitting out 2 games. We know he's dealing with a wrist situation, but at the same time, he is a strictly catch and shoot 3-point guy on low volume.
Yeah.
So when he puts the ball on the floor and is any with any kind of purpose, he's not getting into a mid-range shot. He's not looking to get to the basket. When he drives, it's to pass it to somebody else. Arkansas's got 2 facilitators and Boogie Fland, who's also a really nice scorer, and DJ Wagner, who's probably Arkansas's second best shot creator next to Fland. And you think about that. I mean, Wagner's a guy that as good as he is, he's really a 10 to 12 points per game average kind of guy. If that's one of your top 2 go-to shot creators, it's probably not your best self playing in this league the way how strong it is. And it's no knock against DJ Wagner. Adu Thero's the team's leading scorer. He's not a shot creator. He's a bully ball artist.
Get to the rim.
And we may see more games like this because SEC competition and the athleticism and size of guys and just the defensive schemes are going to be geared around maybe trying to eliminate some of what he does. If he's not getting downhill and getting to the rim, and then even when he does, if he gets to the free throw line, that's an Easter egg hunt. One game, the last game out against Oakland, 6 for 6 against Illinois, the other stinker. Even though he scored 20 points, he had 9 missed free throws. He was 0 4 yesterday. So it sounds like I'm picking on guys. I'm being honest about what Arkansas presents right now. Trevor Brazile, I think, got his first rebound in this game yesterday with about 6 or 7 minutes to play. So it's not just about who do you turn to on offense, but Arkansas does need someone. Boogie Fland's the best player on the team and really the only true 3-level quality shot creator. Wagner's probably the second best on the team. I said that, but a lot of that's getting into the paint, getting all the way to the rim. He's got some really nice drive. He gets to nice finishing angles off his drives, whether it's a floater, a runner, or just getting those high window shots as he gets closer to the rim off the drive. But he's really, even though his 3-point percentage has been pretty good this year, only 1 of 5 yesterday after sticking that first one, over 40% on the season coming into that game. That's really not shot creation from beyond the arc is really not his game. So he is not even a 3-level shot creator. So I spent a lot of time on that because I think that's on offense, Arkansas, other than self-inflicted wounds and unforced turnovers and being up and down as a free throw shooting team on low volume. I think the other big part of that is where's Nelly Davis and where's the guy in a close game outside of Boogie Fland that you can really rely on to go break off some offense, whether it's getting your own or setting somebody else up.
Yeah, I think shot creation, specifically at all 3 levels, is the key there, because that's what we talked about last week, that we said, the reason why, getting Nelly Davis back would be so important for Arkansas is Boogie Fland's been fantastic all year long, but especially when you talk about a team like Tennessee that challenges you in the backcourt defensively the way that they do, we said you need other options. And it's, you phrased it kind of as it sounds like we're picking on guys. It's not so much as that, just kind of facing the facts that if Arkansas doesn't get more shot creation wise, offense wise, it's not always going to look like 52 points, but it's not going to look like the 80 plus that Arkansas was scoring coming into this game. They need more shot creation wise. They just need more offense wise from guys. And obviously, in terms of front line, in terms of Trevor Brazile and Jonas Adu, foul trouble also, right? Staying out of that, Brazile finishing with 13 minutes or whatever it was that he played. You just can't have that. You have to stay on the court, especially when you have 3 guys that can match up. Just with the way the roster is constructed right now. We talked about, you have to, whether you win a big game, whether you get run off the court, in SEC play, you're going to have to put a win, a loss behind you pretty darn quickly. And
Yeah.
this week's a great example of it. Arkansas with 2 ranked opponents coming to Bud Walton Arena. That starts on Wednesday with number 24 Ole Miss. They won their SEC opener against Georgia. And Kevin,
Yeah.
again, we say this every single week. You have to put the last game behind you and come ready to play because, man, you're going to be challenged on Wednesday against the Rebels.
And it's the home opener at Bud Walton Arena. It's a good defensive team, top
Yeah.
25 in KenPom. Arkansas is too. Very similar in that sense. Not as good offense and defense as Tennessee was. And so I think this is an opportunity for Arkansas to get to 1-1. Every game obviously is an opportunity to win, and if you're 0-1, you get a chance to even your record. Seems like a Captain Obvious statement, but I mean this is just because Arkansas lost by 24 points 24 hours ago doesn't mean that they're it's all gloom and doom, and they're probably going to come into this Ole Miss game not ready. I think the opposite of that. I think Arkansas, that's a bit of a wake up call. I think the quality of the team is really good. It's why it's a ranked team. But it's a team probably more in a tier where Arkansas is right now, whereas Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn are probably in that top tier. Kentucky and Florida, neither one of those teams am I 100% sold on in terms of where it ends up for either one of them. They're both really good on offense. We talk about Florida coming in Saturday.
Yeah.
To a top 10 in net, number 6 in the country right now, lost at number 10 Kentucky by 6, 106-100. But has its challenges defensively, Florida does. So I think on both sides of the ball, Tennessee and then playing at home after Arkansas went weak since that tough Michigan test, playing UCA and North Carolina A&T and Oakland. Basically a month between Michigan and Tennessee, and then you go on the road for Tennessee. I think the dynamics are just a little bit less with Ole Miss, although very good, and Florida. And I think Arkansas can win both games. I'm not predicting that right now. Arkansas could lose both and start SEC play again 0-3. They did that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
They've had bad starts in league play, it seems like forever. 1-6, 1-5, 0-3. So those Arkansas has been able to overcome that most seasons. This team, I think, is probably a middling SEC quality Arkansas until it proves otherwise. But I think these games are both winnable. But beyond that, I think Arkansas at worst case is going to be 1-2 with a split. But I think Arkansas can go 2-0 this week and be 2-1 going on a road trip the following week.
Yeah, and I think it's also about taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you, right? Obviously, with the quality and depth of the league, right? You're never going to go into this week and say, yeah, for sure, Arkansas is going to win both games. But if Arkansas wants to be where it wants to be this season, these are both winnable games, and at least in a situation where Arkansas should win one of two. And when you look at Ole Miss, it's definitely a team that Arkansas can beat, but it's also, I think, maybe a breath of fresh air for Arkansas based on what we saw them struggle with on the front line is they don't have a dominant big guy. They don't have a dominant rebounder in the way that Tennessee did. I think I was looking at it earlier. They don't have a guy averaging over 6 rebounds a game, right? So for Arkansas, that at least is an advantage when you look at the Ole Miss game, or maybe not an advantage, just not as much something that scares you the way that Tennessee did. But when you're kind of breaking both these games down, if you are acting like Cal and you're tossing the last game out, right, and you're just on to the next game, what does Arkansas need to show you to make you feel a little bit better about where this team is heading into the rest of the SEC gauntlet this week?
They got to win. I don't think it's enough to shrink a 24-point loss down to say a 3 or 5 point loss. You're at home. This roster was constructed again. Nelly Davis hasn't lived up. You've had injury issues. Jonas Adu was playing really well, and then these last 2 games he'd been sick. He was limited against Oakland. Didn't look all that great yesterday. Nobody really did, and so you need to see some of these pieces start to come back together like they did during the 6-game winning streak. It wasn't all cream puffs. We mentioned Michigan. Even though Miami's not a good high major team, that was still a true road game in a road environment. And Arkansas at that point had even been struggling with the mid majors, let alone losing to Illinois and Baylor. So this team was building on something. You got to put this behind you, and it's not a point now of just playing better and narrowing a losing margin. You got to start winning games. I want to see Arkansas get off the mat.
Yeah,
I think that's what Calipari needs to do. is say we're not losing our home opener. We lost the SEC opener. We're going to even things up, and then Florida's got to come in our house. And look, remember also, Arkansas is undefeated in the state of Arkansas. That sounds ominous when it's been all mid majors and lower quality teams. But there is some element when you're 8-0 in BWA, you won the game in North Rock. There is some element of confidence playing at home. And so the shock to the system in terms of quality that comes into BWA, that may play into a little bit. It's not to say that Arkansas is going to get off to a fast start. We know this team typically has been much better in second halves than it has in first halves. It was a wipeout yesterday for the most part in both halves. But Arkansas, even if it struggles a little bit in the first half, this team's got to find a way to get that first win and put that Tennessee result behind them and beat a quality. It would be a quad 2 win, by the way. Ole Miss right now ranked just outside net top 30, and in home games you got to be in 30 or lower,
Yeah.
or higher or better. For it to qualify as quad 1, but Arkansas doesn't even have a quad 2 result on the season. That would be a quality win. Florida will definitely be a quad 1 game, ranked 8th in net after losing yesterday at Kentucky. So Arkansas's got an opportunity at home to secure two quality wins and put Tennessee behind it. I expect Arkansas to at least get one. I would be more inclined to say Arkansas is more likely to go 2-0 this week than to go 0-2.
All right, we'll take that. It's not quite a prediction, but that's a little bit of optimism for Arkansas. I also think if we're now I told you to put on your John Calipari hat. If we're taking off our John Calipari hat and we can speculate about games ahead, we don't have to take things one game at a time. We've talked a lot about how obviously every game's going to be tough, but I think it's 2 straight road games after these 2 home games, but it's the 3-game stretch, about the only one that you say is in theory an easier stretch, and it is really still going to be challenging. Do not get me wrong, but when you talk about at LSU, at Missouri, Georgia's at
Georgia,
Walton,
yeah,
it's still going to be challenging. Please do not misconstrue what I'm saying. However, that is 3 of probably the 5 bottom teams in the league, and that's still saying a lot. But the point that I'm making here is, the team has to look at it one game at a time. But the reason why I think at least minimum getting a split is so important is because then you have that 3-game stretch where you don't know if you're going to go 3-0, you don't know if you're going to go 2-1. You really hope you don't go 1-2, but it gives you the opportunity to start well in conference play, which, this is a new program under Cal, but like you said, is something that Arkansas hasn't done. And if you get behind the 8 ball in a league like this, it's going to make you struggle even more. It gives you an opportunity to at least get off on the right foot, especially after the 24-point loss.
Yeah, and don't forget, even after Georgia, Oklahoma as a team even though their record's great, and they've had some quality games, they beat Michigan in a close game like Arkansas, that's at home.
Yeah.
So that's the 4th game in that block after Georgia before you go play at Kentucky. And I think, I just think, 3, if you want to phrase it as 3, but throw Oklahoma in there, even though it's a top right now, top, I think 12th, they're going to fall a little bit after getting blown out of Alabama. But I think there's an opportunity there to go 3-1.
Yeah.
If you can somehow, if you split games this week, that's not bad.
Yeah.
You'd be 4-3 at that point, going off to Kentucky, and you'll take that. The further we look down the road, it's dangerous because of how good this league is. And Arkansas has been a team that's played with so much attrition. It was weird seeing all 9 hands on deck available for the same game.
Yeah.
But it felt like even with them in body, it didn't feel like they were all really fully present.
No.
It just didn't in that game. Nelly Davis, even though he's been a low volume guy, has at least been able to scratch a make or two here and there and maybe give you a little bit more defensively. Trevor Brazile had really been, not always, whether he scored 6, 7, 8, 11 points, was giving you rebounds and blocking shots and, having some physical presence. There was 0. That was a 0 count for him. And I know he got in foul trouble early, but still, he played 13 minutes. I didn't see 1 minute of what Trevor Brazile had been showing. Yeah. So I think if you're Calipari, you're staying locked in on what's right in front of you, one game at a time, and you got to motivate these guys to forget Tennessee and dial back in to what worked in a 6-0 perfect December. And then we, as you and I looked ahead to those 4 games, that probably is a stretch that's a little easier than how Arkansas obviously starts the first 3 games. in terms of what it looks like on paper. A couple of those are true road games. Um, uh, but to predict Arkansas would go 3-1 in that 4 game stretch, I think they can go 3-1, and it's probably the one opportunity where you would even dare throw something like that out there. Like you said, most of the segments of 2, 3, 4 consecutive games, it's just not as you're not as clear out about the
Mhm.
possibility of something like that looking ahead.
Yeah. Well, first, John Calipari, the Arkansas Razorbacks have to deal with a heck of a 2 game stretch to no surprise this
Right.
week, hosting 2 ranked opponents in Ole Miss and Florida. That's going to do it for this week's Hog Hoops Report. For Kevin McPherson, I'm Jacob Morris. We'll talk to you next week. More Picture Show coming up after the break.